Thanks for joining us on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Chris Harapsky. Some major progress pushing back raging wildfires up north today. The Eastern Area Incident Management Team says the Camp House fire is now 90% contained. That fire sparked on May 11th and has burned more than 12,000 acres of land. The Jenkins Creek fire, burning in a more remote, hard-to-reach area, is 32% contained. A look from our nation's capital today, where President Trump's so-called big, beautiful bill is heading to the Senate. The House of Representatives passing a legislation overnight by one vote. The legislation would extend the president's expiring 2017 tax cuts. There's also increases in spending for the U.S. military and for the president's mass deportation plans. It also fulfills two of Trump's campaign promises, eliminating taxes on tips and overtime work. The bill also slashes spending in other areas, including hundreds of billions of dollars in cuts to Medicaid and SNAP food assistance. The bill would also raise the debt ceiling by $4 trillion. It is not clear if the bill has support in the Senate, but several GOP senators have already said they will be making changes. Breaking right now, a University of Minnesota student has just been released from ICE custody. This after a federal judge ordered that release. Dokan Günaydın has been behind bars for nearly 2 months as federal officials tried to deport the Turkish native because of a 2023 DWI conviction. A judge dismissed his case earlier this month, saying that conviction is not grounds for deportation. Homeland Security appealed that ruling, which led to today's order. Work still happening right now at the state capitol on a budget here in Minnesota. Legislative leaders wanted their members to work out disagreements in their budget bills by 5 o'clock Wednesday evening. They obviously missed that deadline set by Governor Walz, which means legislative leaders are likely to step in and get things moving. Lawmakers still have to finalize major areas of the state budget like education, health and human services, and transportation. Most of these discussions are happening behind closed doors. So there's still a lot to be decided at the Minnesota Capitol, but one thing is certain. The state will go one more year without legalized sports betting. Minnesota is now just one of 11 states where you cannot gamble on sports. But if you look around, it's hard to tell. There are ads everywhere, and a new report suggests it's a growing concern among teenagers. Here's Kent Erdahl.
Just a few years after states opened the doors to legalize sports betting, it's massive business, with Sports Illustrated now reporting the NCAA is considering removing its ban on pro sports betting.
I think what it tells us is it's culturally embedded in our community.
Hamline psychology professor Dr. Serena King says the impact on kids is also telling. According to her analysis of the 2022 Minnesota Student Survey just published in JAMA Pediatrics, nearly 8% of students surveyed gamble at least once per week.
What are you seeing in general with gambling and youth gambling?
Around 70 to 80% of our sample who were gambling that often were gambling on sports and games.
Are we talking about a playground bet with a friend, a sports betting app?
Both were pretty high in terms of the self-report among frequent gamblers.
I'm not sure the data's keeping up necessarily with what we're seeing.
Susan Sheridan Tucker says the Minnesota Alliance on Problem Gambling is bracing for the first updated survey in 3 years.
And teachers are very much acknowledging that they're seeing their students gamble on their phones. It's so accessible. If your child is gambling more than once a week, that should be a red flag. We've normalized gambling, and I think we're not having the conversations around what the risks are.
Research last year into those risks among Minnesota adults found that more than 250,000 already identify as problem gamblers, and 56,000 would likely be diagnosed with a gambling addiction. But at the time, there were only 19 state-licensed providers to treat them.
I think we're down to 17 providers now.
She admits that if the state legalized sports betting, funding for more providers and classroom education would improve, but it would come at a cost.
It's a double-edged sword. We put the protections in place for consumers and youth, which I think good conversations have been happening in our state, and I'm really proud of those conversations. But whenever you legalize a product that becomes widely available, people will be exposed, and that includes youth. The incoming data from 2025 will be very useful in informing that conversation.
I listened to literally hundreds of recovery stories of people. One of the first questions asked is, when was your first exposure to gambling? gambling. And almost inevitably, they're talking about experiences as young kids. If you're a family that enjoys gambling, I think it's important to understand that somebody in middle school and high school doesn't really have the full capacity to understand the risks involved.
The Minnesota Alliance on Problem Gambling has been advocating for statewide prevention materials in schools. In the meantime, they do have resources for parents and families online. Just go to KARE11.com for a link. Right now, the BCA is investigating after Coon Rapids police say an officer shot and killed a man they say was armed with a knife. This happened about noon yesterday on 111th Avenue Northwest off of Foley Boulevard. Police say that they were responding to a domestic disturbance at a home there. Officials say the person refused to leave the house and kept holding onto a knife. Police say they then used less lethal rounds twice before the man came towards them. That's when one officer shot the man, another tased the man and tried to get up. As the man tried to get up, the man died in the hospital. 4 officers are on standard administrative leave now for that incident. New today, Oklahoma will not be able to launch the nation's first religious public charter school. In a 4-4 decision, justices were deadlocked. This means that the Oklahoma Supreme Court ruling stands. That court ruled the proposal for the school violates the Constitution and state law. A big factor in this decision was the absence of Justice Amy Coney Barrett. She did not participate in the vote and did not state why. New video today gives us a better look at the destruction after a small plane crashed into a San Diego neighborhood early this morning. The crash happening in a military housing neighborhood, leaving several people dead. NBC's Nicole Gomez has been on that scene all day. She's here now with more details.
Well, we are in the Murphy Canyon neighborhood of San Diego. This is military housing behind me, and you can see it is a complete disaster zone on this street here. San Diego police, San Diego firefighters, as well as the mayor are here on scene, kind of surveying the damage. Looking past, you can see several cars that caught on fire, charred remains, and as we pan over, you can see some of the homes that have been damaged in this military housing community. So from our understanding, what we know so far is that the pilot was killed in this crash, as well as anyone else who was on board. We do know that this Cessna small plane was registered out of the Midwest. It was making its way toward Montgomery Field, which is a small airport here in San Diego. Approximately 8 to 10 people, including the pilot, can fit on board this type of plane. It's unknown how many more passengers it was carrying in addition to the pilot. So far, as far as investigators know, the pilot and any passengers are the only people who have died on scene. This plane managed to land in the middle of this street, avoiding a direct hit to any homes. Investigators say that no one from the homes or anybody on the ground was seriously injured. No one had to be transported to the hospital. So that is the silver lining. That is the good news this morning. This plane crashed again at 3:45 this morning, and NTSB remains on scene as they will be here for several more hours. Reporting from San Diego, Nicole Gomez, NBC News.
Happening today, new parking changes take effect at Bedeh-McCoska. The Minneapolis Parks and Rec Board says it's to address safety issues. Raya Katane is here now with more.
Even on the rainy days, a daily walk around the lake is a must for Mike Seaman.
Every day.
But these updated parking signs are a new sight for this longtime neighbor of Bedeh-McCoska.
I'm surprised to see it. I hadn't noticed that. In all my years of being around here, I've never seen or encountered any violence in this area, in this parking lot.
Beginning Thursday, parking in lots on bays on the west and south sides of the lake will be restricted. No parking will be allowed starting at 8 p.m. instead of 10 as usual until 6 the next morning.
I've heard that it can be a little noisy at night.
That's according to the parents of Noah Hansen's fiance who live in the area. But more than just noisy, the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board says it's making the change for safety reasons. The board says big groups of people, mostly teens and young adults, are engaging in disruptive, illegal, and sometimes violent behavior. A spokesperson even points to a shooting on May 9th at 36th Street West and East Bedeh-McCoska Parkway.
That kind of echoes what my fiance's parents have said, is that it can get really noisy at night and there's a lot going on at hours of night that there doesn't really need to be stuff happening.
I've never seen anything like that while I've been here.
Margot McCabe and Miles Bandelow are no strangers to this park.
Yeah.
Often coming here to take in the nature and sometimes staying after dark.
I've never once felt like I was in any danger or there was anything going on that was going to prevent us from being here. Like, I've never seen any rowdiness.
They say limiting parking is a bad idea, and as the seasons change, longtime neighbors like Mike say less rain and more sunshine will mean plenty more traffic, even if there's less parking.
Parking change only applies to those specific lots and bays on the west and south sides of the lake. The park itself will still be open every day from 6 in the morning until midnight. Let's call it a pre-fair affair. The Great Minnesota Get-Together is still more than 90 days away, but the gates are swinging open today for a kickoff to summer at the fair. This is the 5th annual kickoff to summer at the fair event, giving you a taste of the late August tradition. And we mean that literally. You'll have nearly 40 food and drink vendors to choose from. Sweet Martha's will be there. So will Big Fat Bacon and Pronto Pups, Nums. Music and entertainment come free with admission tickets, which by the way cost $13 online, $16 at the gate. Kickoff runs from 4 to 9 today and tomorrow. And then on Saturday and Sunday, it's open from 11 to 7. Stick with us. More news and weather coming up after the break.